Hello everyone, Derek Stam Toys, and we are back with another action figure review. As you can see, we've got a little bit of a different one here today. We've actually got the MLW Series 1, I guess you could say. It doesn't really signify if it's a Series 1 or if this was the only series so far, at least as far as I'm aware of the only series. We've got Mads Krugger, or as I tend to call him, just Mad Krugger. I don't know. I'm definitely really excited to get into this action figure review. As you may know, we have reviewed at least one of these figures down here. And yes, it is the Alex Hammerstone. As I was pointing at it, we will do a little bit of an action figure comparison with that. Of course, would love to get the Jacob Fatu, and I wouldn't mind getting the Killer Cross for shits and giggles, but you know what, at the end of the day, we'll just have to see if we can collect all the figures in this wave. We've got 2 out of the 4, and well, what an interesting figure to get nonetheless. We've got the Contra, we got Clutch Slam, known as his signature moves. I'm assuming it's Contra Clutch Slam. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of taking some of a whim when it comes to Mads Krugger, as I'm sure any of you at home actually watching this along with me, you don't see this guy very often. Of course, if you watched a lot of MLW, for instance, or if you've seen some DPW, to shout out John Blood and all them boys over at New Legacy and Dank Ops and all them who are a part of that brand, just because, you know, their shows are pretty good too, I can't lie. His match in particular with, I want to say it's Steve Corino's son, was honestly pretty damn good. I'll give it that. And oddly enough, all I can really say is I'm kind of done with giving it an introduction. Let's break this bad boy out of this fairly nice and unique plastic prison. Alrighty, you guys, now that we've got Mad Krugger out of the box, we can take a good look at all the accessories he comes with. And with all that being said, as you can see, he has 3 different sets of interchangeable hands, just like the Alex Hammerstone did, if I recall correctly. You've got the alternative head scan, just like Alex Hammerstone. And then you've got the oddball accessory, as I'm kind of calling it. Alex Hammerstone came with a championship. He comes with this shillelagh looking weapon. And honestly, if it is a shillelagh, I'm happy I got it right. If not, I'm not exactly sure what this is, but it looks like he's gonna hold this thing and bap you upside the head with it. Whether he's got the hard part or he's got the stick, he's gonna bap you upside the head with it, bust you open with it maybe, because I don't know if you can see right there, it does have like a little pointy tip there, so potentially could bust somebody open if that's actually how it is, and that's just not kind of like how the person at the factory cut it. I would know, I have worked in a plastic factory before. Working. Looking at the hand accessories, of course, each set of hands has one fully black gloved hand, and I do love the way these gripping or choke slammy hands look. I love the way they actually do plug in, as they feel a lot sturdier in my opinion, because they've got more of like a screw or a ribbed peg. No diddy. You can, you know, I'm not gonna say they're easier to take out, but they do feel a lot better in the wrist peg. As I will say, just from an example here, you can see me moving the wrist. This one in particular bends a little bit different than the other 2, so bear with me as I try to get it to bend. As you can tell there, it bends up and down. These ones bend kind of just like the standard Mattel and or AEW wrist. I'm not going to try to force that with my fingertips, because golly, look at that little indent in my finger. Shiza. anyway, I think we've gone over the accessories well enough. We will look at the alternative head scan on this figure later, but first and foremost, we've got the head scan that comes on the figure. We've got his original mask, if I recall, the reptile-ish looking mask that's over there in the accessory pile is his newer mask. Maybe he swaps between the two, I don't know, but I love the way this mask looks in particular because he looks like he's getting ready to butcher someone. And with how menacing of a man this dude actually is in ring, honestly, him wearing this mask makes him even creepier. Like, this is on like the scale of Mankind and Abyss, but maybe driven to an extra scale, because like even he's got a neck apron to cover his neck from blood splatter and all that different kind of stuff. He's got the separate nose cloth and all that kind of stuff. It's an interesting and very well designed mask, at least if I don't say so myself. I love all the little details in there as well, because you've got the little dots for the like pins and stuff of that nature. They're like a darker green color, I guess you could say. Maybe they're a black, I can't tell. You've got the straps that run around his beautiful bald head. You know, if he didn't have tattoos and was like, what did the back of the package say, like 7'3"? Or however tall this man is, you'd almost think with that beautiful of a bald head, he'd be Simon Miller. Of course, getting away from the head scan and looking at the rest of the figure itself, it is not a fairly heavy deco design figure, though his tattoo work is a fairly beautiful like looking piece there. And you know, I say that as someone who has a lot of tattoos himself. These just are really like crazy designs, and they even continue up onto the shoulder joints, or well, the butterfly joints that are like almost just barely there. Like on this one, it feels like I gotta force it to move, which, you know, isn't a problem. Maybe one of these days I'll work it in a bit better, but I don't know. I feel like that's even stiffer on the butterfly joints than when I opened up the Alex Hammerstone. Just gonna throw that in for a comparison here, because the butterfly joint on this one, it moves fairly well. So, you know, like you can see, it moves on its own with a little bit of force, of course. Nice and stiff joint, but it still moves. We will get into action figure comparisons with that here in a moment. But with this like butterfly joint on him, I am like barely getting that to move. So I don't know if it's like his torso and how the torso is built or what, but that butterfly joint is not really impressing too much so far on this figure in particular, though everything else joint wise is really nice. You've got the double jointed arms, you've got the wrist articulation and wrist swivel, upper bicep swivel, you've got the 360 in the shoulder, you've got 360 in the head if you use the other one, I'm assuming, because the neck flap will definitely hinder that. Got a really good range in the ab here. Of course, no upper diaphragm movement really, though this lower half speaks more for the success rate here as far as articulation is going. You've got upper leg movement, no full rotation though, because of the difference in the leg joint, though I do appreciate the way this leg is. We've got the double jointed knees. You've got the boot swivel, though, because of how the pants are molded, you don't really get too much out of that. And of course, you've got ankle bend, if I can get the ankle to bend. I will say it is fairly stiff on this figure, so to get it with one hand is kind of just a chore. But I do say I love how this figure moves. I do love the way the figure poses, because he has a big boot range that matches most Ultimate Editions. He's got a super kick range that matches most Ultimate Editions, and this is a big man, so with the fact that he doesn't have like full kick rotation, the ability to throw a big boot better than most Mattel Elite figures can even kick forward, especially nowadays. This is a really good quality figure for the price range you are going to tend to pay, and because it is harder and harder to find the MLW figures right now, well, let's be honest, you're going to be paying over $40 for this bad boy, if not at least like under 45, because that's how much I paid. I paid like roughly 42 something for this figure, and that was with it on Amazon. No, you cannot find any of the other figures on Amazon. You will be forced to go into the eBay and the Mary Carts and all the aftermarkets of the internet just to find MLW figures past Amazon. And I don't know if the supply that they have is the last of what you can get out of all these guys. Of course, this guy is fairly the least popular out of all the four, especially right now, and that's just because all three, except for this guy, have technically competed in WWE, even if it was just a one-match appearance. And yes, I am talking about you, Mr. Alex Hammerstone. So, yeah, I guess with that being said, let's get into a little bit of action figure comparisons as we talk a bit more about this figure now. Alright, now that we've got him a little switched up here, we've got the new head scan on him there. We've also got some action figures we can compare him to. Of course, first up, we've got the MLW action figure comparison, because he does come from the same wave, and knowing that the Mads Krugger is 7 feet tall, if I recall. I think Alex Hammerstone is like 6'4". That is fairly good on the scaling there, so I'll give him that. Mads Krugger is a giant on TV, and he definitely deserves to be represented as so. Though, I don't know, is Drew McIntyre 7 feet tall? Because Drew McIntyre stands a little bit over the Mads Krugger, though I'd say he does scale fairly well when it comes to R-Truth. Of course, the sad reality is that, I don't really know all these guys' heights off the top of my head, so it's kind of hard to compare them all. Though we do also have Powerhouse Hobbs, where they may scale a lot better here, as the MLW figures are kind of on a Jazzware-esque formula. And with all that being said, I'm sure you can kind of see it in the torso comparisons and stuff of that nature. Though so far, these figures do move phenomenally all the way through, and as far as I'm aware of, not all AEW figures do, as this, he kind of has a similar leg movement to Mads Krugger, but because of how the leg is, instead of it being on whatever these guys' joints are in the legs, he's on ball joints, he can barely big boot. So, I'll definitely give the Big Boss Fight Studio or Big Bad Toy Store, I don't even remember, hold on, let's see, Boss Fight Studios figures and how good they are on the action figure movement. I'm not gonna lie, that lighting there definitely was looking a little crispy. Ooh, that's some nice lighting. Anyways, gonna have to step back in front of the sun with my tall ass, aka the sun that's shining in through the window is not able to peek through as much. I will say though, before we get into the final thoughts on this figure, for how plain Jane it is, I do love the green army pants. I love how the belt is sculpted. The pants are pretty nice in general. You know, I was talking about them just a second ago, but the sculpt on them is really good too, with all the pockets and intricate details, especially with the fact that, whoops, you've got these like little knee pad things here, and they're actually molded with textures. You've got so many, and I mean so many little pockets and stuff of that nature. The black tank top is, I'd say, molded and painted fairly well as well. That was kind of a weird statement there, well as well. Anywho, the main thing, this extra head scan is, if I can get it in focus, pretty damn cool. Of course, you've got this reptile looking mask, and it does have the like snake skin pattern on the back with a little bit of mask texturing there, I'm assuming, because you can see some stitching there as well. I love the little intricate details on this mask, including the teeth with the green dots. This man just looks like he's ready to go to war every time he steps out there. And speaking of that, I think it is time for us to get into our final thoughts. So let's do that now, shall we? Alrighty, you guys. We have Mads Krugger in his final pose, delivering a choke slam with that shillelagh-esque weapon to Alex Hammerstone, and what a pose. Like, that's holding all on its own, no rubber bands, just hands and posing. The way I like to do it in the Fed. Of course, I will use a rubber band every now and again, or maybe an extra set of hands if I can find them. But with all that being said, you know, this Mads Krugger is probably one of my new favorite figures in the collection, at least as far as the obscure and lesser known names go, just because, well, both men here are fairly like unknown names, unless you're watching MLW, TNA, DPW, to shout them out again, I guess you could say. Just whatever you can. A lot of these names, they don't always appear on the bigger stages. And so coming across a guy like Mads Krugger is actually kind of exciting, just for the like weird comparisons, I guess you could say, you can have in your head, where it's like, oh, he wears a really cool mask. Maybe you start thinking about how people like The Fiend and stuff like that wear really cool masks. And then you go into the outfit and it's like, huh, he kind of reminds me of a SHIELD member, but he's wearing green army pants. Then you start watching some of his matches and you see how brutal this man wrestles, and like his attire suits the way he wrestles, because that dude looks like he will stiff shot you if need be. Of course, in modern day wrestling, I wouldn't say he's the modern day equivalent to Bruce or Brody, but I feel like if he was back in those days and was actually on par with them guys, he would probably be on the like level of a Bruce or Brody, because I feel like he would take things as far as he needed to protect his career. But that's what you feel, should feel when you watch wrestling, is the little bit of disbelief, just going in there not knowing what to expect, just thinking the unthinkable, because realistically there's a lot of things that are unthinkable that happen in wrestling, just like John Cena turning heel at the Chamber. I know we mentioned it in the R-Truth review, but goddamn, I'm still shocked by it, and I'm sure a lot of you at home still are too. So I guess if I guessed that right, maybe hit that like button, or actually don't. I don't really care. But speaking of that, because before we get into that outro, It is already almost 20 minutes, so why don't we say what we feel about this and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. I feel like this is a really great figure overall. I know I did say it was probably one of my favorite, more obscure figures, especially because MLW is not a very big brand, so for them to get action figures is actually a really neat thing. But on a scale of 1 to 10, honestly, I'm going to give this guy a good solid 8.5, and that's just because the butterfly joints are a little bit iffy, and so isn't that upper diaphragm movement, but honestly, everything else is like pretty damn near perfect. I almost fucked up my speech there. But, of course, when it comes to the 1 out of 10 rating anyways, if we gave something a 10, then we'd have to break the 1 out of 10 scale. Just like then, we would have to break the Dave Meltzer rating, you know, the good old 1 to Young Buck match, the 1 to 5 stars. Or what is he up to now, like 14 stars? I know he was handing FTR like 8, 9 star matches at one point. Anywho, I gave him a good solid 8.5. So I feel like it's only warranted that we give him a good solid 4.25 star out of 5 stars. And that's just because of how excellent this figure is. The accessories are really good. And honestly, if you feel like you like this like wrestling character as far as the look goes, I'm sure you may like the way he wrestles too. But if you're not into that hardcore style, I would not recommend this Contra unit for you. See what I did there? Because I do at least know the name of the group he was a part of with Jacob Fatu and Minoru Suzuki, who, you know, just for a little bit of bragging rights, I did see live in my hometown. Well, like last year? I think around this time, but no, not exactly. Towards the end of the year last year. If I can find the video, maybe I'll throw it in here in a quick edit, or maybe I won't because I am too lazy. But honestly, on that note, if you like the video, you know, feel free to like the video. If not, womp womp, I guess. It does not bug me all that much. But speaking of what does bug me, you know, is you maybe not taking the time to check out some of the other content. We've got action figure reviews for days. We've got pick fed content. We've also got some other random shish like unboxings and how to fix your modern day Mattel figure legs, like this Drew McIntyre went from having a little stiff one to now his legs can kick forward and he can sit on his bum just like a good little Scottish boy. Anyways, that I don't know, was that a little fucked up? Let's not think about it too hard. What we should be thinking about though, if you guys could, maybe feel free to hit that subscriber button. After all, it is free to subscribe, so I would appreciate it. And with all that being said, you know, I want to say we were at 340 yesterday, but we have since then dropped down one. Womp womp. You know, not to reference a dude who I don't really care for too much on AEW TV, though I do like his gimmick and stuff of that nature. I just feel like his promos are a little iffy. We did lose the subscriber. Cry me a river, I guess. Play the small violin. Get some real glass. Because we are still 10 away from getting the goal of 350 subs. So if you guys could maybe, you know, like I did say, subscribe. After all, it is free. And you do help me out when you do so, because that makes me driven to want to get more content out there for you guys, because I want to see the channel grow. After all, I've been here since what, like 2022? Something of that nature. I can't exactly remember my start date, if that's bad or not. I don't know. I just know I've been on the platform for over 2 years now, getting into the 3rd year, which is the crazy thing to think about. If I recall correctly, Yeah, 2022. That makes sense. That makes sense now. We're in 2025. Whoa, where's my head at? 2K25 releases here in the next, week. I don't know. Sorry for the small ramble there. On that note, just one more time, please subscribe. Anyway, I really hope that didn't sound terrible. That was cringy as fuck. But have a good rest of your day, night, evening, whatever the case may be. I don't know, because I am not in your time zone. But if I were, would I enjoy my time? Only time can tell. And on that note, deuces, ooses, yeet.